All right. My name is Scarlett Hiller, and I am the franchise partner of Expedia Cruises in the West Vancouver location. Our travel talks are being offered to you by the Expedia Cruises offices in BC, spanning from Vancouver Island, Kelowna, and of course the Vancouver area. These travel talks will hopefully provide you with some thoughts and ideas for future travel. For those that have not attended a Zoom meeting, everyone is muted or should be muted. You can choose to show us your smiling faces or not by controlling your video on the bottom left of your screen. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please use the chat feature and we will either answer those questions via the chat feature throughout the presentation or leave those questions until the end for both myself and Kristen to answer at the very end. 2020, 2021 have been very challenging years. For all of us travelers, we haven't been able to go anywhere and all of us are biting at the bit to go. So 2021 will hopefully be the start of our travels again. Many people are dreaming and planning and booking their next vacation. They want to be pampered on a ship. They want to experience the great dining, and they want to stop at some wonderful ports along the way. Our teams of travel advisors are here to help you every step of the way. Using a local travel consultant is more important than ever. As a result of the pandemic, travel has become slightly more complicated, but the travel advisors understand those complexities and work hard to make your next trip as safe and as seamless as possible. Plus, our consultants are committed to finding you the best vacation for your wants and your needs, providing all sorts of different options, and of course, the best pricing. We have at Expedia Cruises our Expedia Extras program, which offers extra amenities on many cruise itineraries and with our different cruise suppliers. And remember, at Expedia Cruises, we are more than just cruise vacations. We offer everything from land, air, and of course, that cruise vacation. Our consultants will offer you advice you can trust and will always be there for you. Definitely an advantage for shopping at your local Expedia Cruises office. So tonight, I would like to introduce our presentation, our host for tonight's presentation, and that is Kristen, and she is with Hurtigruten Expeditions. She is our business development manager for our offices in BC. So welcome, Kristen, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Scarlett. It's my pleasure to be here this evening. I'm coming to you all from just outside of Toronto. But I'm so thankful to be here to be able to speak to you this evening. And thank you so much on behalf of our Vancouver Island and Vancouver area Expedia Cruises centers. So today I'm going to take you through a little bit about who we are at Hurtigruten Expeditions, what that experience looks like, where we visit, and I'm going to give you sort of a little sneak peek into the amazing destination of Antarctica, which I had the opportunity to travel there actually just before COVID hit in early March of 2020. So just a little history about who we are in case you're not familiar with the name Hurtigruten. We actually started in over 128 years ago. So actually in 1893, we started a shipping and mail route along the coast of Norway, first between Trondheim and Hammerfest, and then expanding all from Bergen all the way down in the south up to Kirkenes all the way up in the north. And we were able to do this route in just 7 days time. And back then that was very fast. And the name Hurtigruten actually means the fast route or express route. So Hurtig means fast or express, Ruten means route. And the Norwegians so eloquently pronounce our name Hurtigruten. I don't quite roll my R's as nicely as the Norwegians do. So we have a pretty phenomenal history and really started sort of coastal cruising in Norway. It is actually the second longest coastline in the world, second to Canada. And we still operate this route today. We actually have 7 ships that are dedicated to this cargo route. As well, we do also offer the opportunity for locals to use us as a ferry service and for international guests to come on and really see and experience the Norwegian way of life. But of course, since then, we have expanded into many other destinations with our expedition fleet. So I'm going to introduce you to what those ships look like and where those destinations are. Going into the 21-22 season, we have 7 ships that are part of the Hurtigruten Expeditions family. They range in size anywhere from 90 passengers up to 530 passengers. And some of the destinations that we do sail in do have capacity restrictions that we need to follow in order to be able to be in and actually stepping foot on land in those destinations. And I'll share a little bit with you about what that looks like when it comes to a place like Antarctica. But just to give you a little look inside, of course, with our Norwegian heritage and influence, we have a very Scandinavian design with our ships. We are a premium product, but really like to have that comfortable, casual atmosphere on board. So as you can see, lots of light and natural colored woods, warm woolen blankets, especially very helpful when we are cruising in those polar regions. I like to call it premium IKEA at sea, but don't ever tell my boss I say that because they'd probably kill me. But I think that's kind of the look that I get, when I experience our Hurtigruten ship. When it comes to our dining on board, yes, we do offer a bit of a Norwegian flair to our cuisine, but we do have a very international mix. And we are very well known for vegetarian and vegan options as well. So we do have your standard dining room where you can order, your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But we do have on some of our ships a casual option where you might want to just have a quick bite of, a gourmet hot dog or some dumplings or tacos. And we do offer a specialty restaurant on board some of our ships as well, if you might be celebrating something special. And this specialty restaurant also comes included for our suite guests. Just a little look inside at some of the public spaces. We are very well known for our science center on board, and I'll talk a little bit to what that program looks like. But we offer very comfortable and cozy explorer lounges, and I love the build and design of the Hurtigruten ships because there's always great access to floor to ceiling windows, because you just never know, when the opportunity might arise that a pod of whales might go swimming by the ship, and you want to have easy access, to the view and to getting outside on top of our the top deck of our ships. And we have fantastic lecture centers where our guests can come and learn about, the destinations that we're visiting, some of the wildlife they might visit, and just really the science behind a lot of the places that we're going to. Now, of course, with COVID comes a different look with what the experience will be on board. And when it comes to the embarkation process, currently Hurtigruten Expeditions is requiring vaccinated guests on board at least through 2021. And we will look into, extending that based on current scientific and advisories from our European partners that we work with, being a Norwegian-based company. And we're also looking at the vaccination of all of our crew as well. We are currently requiring a PCR COVID test that's done no later than 72 hours prior to departure. And we will also be doing a rapid COVID test upon embarkation as well. We are currently limiting the capacity on our ships to allow for social distancing. And we will be requiring face masks in the public areas. Obviously, when eating and drinking, face masks are not required. And when we are on the top decks of our ships doing some on-deck guiding and viewing, so long as you're able to, be a little bit separated from your neighbor, you're able to remove your face mask in that situation as well. Also, with a lot of the destinations that we do visit, we have the opportunity for nature landings. And in those situations, we won't be requiring our guests to have face masks either. We have enhanced our cleaning and disinfecting protocols, and the food service will look a little bit different. We have removed buffet service and we'll be offering a la carte on board. And we will also be actually offering our guests a takeaway option if they prefer to enjoy their meal in the comfort of the stateroom. We will also be, we do have our onboard medical team, and they are available in the medical center. We have 24/7 access to them. And we'll be doing continuous monitoring throughout the cruise as well, with temperature checks. And of course, hand sanitizing stations and washing stations are set up throughout the ship to make sure we're keeping up with those cleaning protocols. But just to give you an idea of where we explore at Hurtigruten Expeditions, and yes, you know, we do offer Norway as our coastal express route, but we do also offer it as an expedition destination as well. We actually sail to Norway all year round, so you can experience us spring, summer, fall, and winter, and each season brings something different to this destination. So maybe in summertime, it's the opportunity to sail under the midnight sun and have this, you know, incredible experience of going through some of the very scenic fjords that Norway is very well known for. Or maybe in the wintertime, it's the hope of being able to see this beautiful phenomena, the Northern Lights. And the great thing is we spend so much time above the Arctic Circle on our Norway expeditions that there's great opportunity to be able to see them. We even have a Northern Lights guarantee. That's how confident we are with our Norway expeditions in the wintertime. Now, we do visit the British and Scottish Isles, and what can be great about this destination is you can go and experience this destination on a large ship and visit a lot of the larger cities and experience, you know, historical monuments and things like that, but then come back to this destination and try it as an expedition. We introduce our guests to really sort of the rugged English cliffs and coastlines, the remote Scottish, you know, fishing villages and small communities, those historic Welsh ports and Irish cities. It really is a neat way to experience this part of the British and Scottish Isles. Now, when we go to a place like Svalbard, this is actually Arctic Norway. It is a separate archipelago of mainland Norway, and this is home of the polar bear. So a great opportunity for us to try and find and seek out this animal, of course, maintaining a safe distance at all times. But a great opportunity for us to even sail above 80 degrees north. And we sail here in the summertime because, of course, we do need some of the ice to melt in order for us to be able to sail in this region. Iceland is another great destination to try as an expedition cruise. We actually do a full circumnavigation of the island of Iceland. And whether or not you knew, Iceland is actually part. There is an island that belongs to Iceland that sits just north called Grimsey, and we make an attempted landing here. And what's special about this island is the Arctic Circle actually crosses all the way through this island. So our guests can actually step foot above and below the Arctic Circle right within the same area that they're standing. But Iceland, it's not an inexpensive destination to go to. It can be quite expensive to travel here. So there's great value in expedition cruising because you will have your accommodations, your meals, and some of your touring included, and will get a great perspective both from sea and land as well. Greenland is another fantastic destination if you're looking to either get up close and personal and learn more about the local culture and traditions of the indigenous people that live here. Or in the northeast Greenland, it's actually home to the largest national park in the world, but it's actually the least visited and most difficult to get to. And the best way to get there is via expedition cruise. Now, Greenland itself is actually covered 80% in ice. It is the second largest ice sheet in the world, second to Antarctica. So the 20% that isn't covered in ice is along that west coast, where we get the opportunity to meet and interact and learn about the way of life of the local communities. And whether or not you knew, Greenland is actually home to some of the largest icebergs in the world. You might originally think Antarctica, but it is actually in and around the Ilulissat area where some of the largest icebergs are produced. And the iceberg that actually sunk the Titanic came from Ilulissat in Greenland. Now, the Northwest Passage really is iconic, and I think something as Canadians that we should all maybe try and strive for, and that's really exploring our own backyard through Arctic Canada. We are one of the only ones that attempts the full transit all the way through the Northwest Passage. Now, there were many failed attempts at this in the past, and we do actually have the opportunity to visit some sites where, unfortunately, expeditions have failed. There is a spot called Beachy Island where we can actually see the grave sites from the failed Franklin expedition from back in the mid-1800s. And this one here, a great nod to some Canadianism. It's actually the last Hudson's Bay trading post from back in 1937, a place where we could actually go inside and see what's still remaining. So there's a lot of great polar history travel that works its way into, learning about and experiencing the Northwest Passage. Now, Alaska is definitely known as a very popular cruise destination, especially for those of you on the West Coast and the opportunity to sail in or out of Vancouver. We offer that opportunity as well. And our longer experience here, we are 14 up to 18-day packages because we have the opportunity to go as far north as Nome, Alaska, and even explore around the Aleutian Islands. So we tend to hit a lot of the smaller communities that we visit. So you won't ever find us in Ketchikan, Juneau, or Skagway where the larger ships are. We are in small towns like Wrangell and Petersburg, and we have the opportunity to get down into our Zodiacs and do some scenic cruising, up close and personal with the icebergs and the glaciers and the scenic fjord areas that we get the opportunity to explore. We like to say for Alaska, we bring the wild back into the wild frontier. Now, the Americas is a very broad category, but reason being because we need to bring our ships from the north down to the south before we start our Antarctic season. So we do offer some East and West Coast Canada and US departures, visiting nature reserves, national parks, and really getting to enjoy sort of those small coastal communities and towns. We also go through some warm weather destinations in Central and South America. So even if you're looking for, a warmer weather cruise, it's a great option to try Expedition because we get to learn a lot about the local flora and fauna and communities and history, and it's a different type and a different way of experiencing cruise. And the Galapagos, I think it's a very obvious place for us to be sailing because of our appreciation for very unique wildlife opportunities. So we're very thrilled to be starting back expeditions in Galapagos in January of 2022. This is a great place to go if you're looking to, again, get to those untouched places and really have that unique wildlife experience that in some cases you can't see these wildlife in any other part of the world. But today we're going to focus specifically on Antarctica, and it is known as the coldest, windiest, highest, driest continent on Earth. I mean, if that doesn't sell it, I don't know what does. Whether or not you actually knew, Antarctica is a desert. It receives very little precipitation. So despite all the snow and the ice, it's not what we typically think of for a desert, but this is the case for this seventh continent. So why would you actually want to go here? Especially too, I think, me being over in Toronto, we get winter up the yin-yang pretty frequently. So why would I want to go down and experience snow and ice here in this rather untouched area? And it really is, that opportunity to travel where very few have been. I think the percentage is about less than 2% of the world has traveled to Antarctica. For me, it was a personal goal. I had traveled to the other 6 continents, and I so badly needed to be able to tick off that 7th continent. And to this day, it has been the most memorable and favorite trip of what I've had the opportunity to enjoy thus far. It really is the opportunity to connect to a destination in a way that you didn't know was possible. And there's just something so special and magical about being the only little ship in where you are. You don't ever really run into other ships. You might see 1 or 2 off in the distance as we do some scenic cruising, but it's just you and your ship and your passengers and crew. And when you are ashore and it's just you and the wildlife, it's really very, very special. Now, going to Antarctica, it's more of an educational focus over entertainment, and really, for us, kind of touching on our spirit of exploration and honoring those polar historians from the past. So one of our newest ships, the MS Roald Amundsen, aptly named after Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen, who was the first to make it down to the South Pole in his race against Scott. So we do work a lot of those tales and stories into where we're visiting and what we're seeing. But going down to Antarctica, you need to travel with an open mind, keeping in mind that everything is based around what Mother Nature throws at us. I like to say experiencing nature on nature's own terms. So we have to keep our schedule flexible in order to adapt and change and work with the conditions that we have. But the great thing about that is also the ability to take advantage of opportunities as they come about and not being stuck to a strict schedule. And I'll show you a photo a little further down of one of those opportunities we had to experience. So why travel to Antarctica with Hurtigruten expeditions? Well, you heard me mention we're over 128 years old, and that really is expertise that only comes with experience. We started our first polar expedition just 3 years after we started as a company in 1896. There's a lot of rules and regulations that need to happen and be followed in order for us to be here. And any slip of any of the rules, we can very much be kicked out of Antarctica. So we have over 20 years in this destination, and we still learn new things with each season that we go down and experience, but it's given a great base to be able to adapt and work with all of the conditions that Mother Nature likes to give us. We are the world leader in sustainability in the cruise industry. We offer the lowest possible CO2 footprint of all voyages down in Antarctica. This beauty that you see here in the photo, she's the world's first hybrid electric powered cruise ship. We were also the first cruise line to completely ban single-use plastics back in 2018. And we like to do things with our guests like beach cleanups because it's amazing, even in these remote areas, how much plastic and fishing industry waste can wash up on the shores. And our guests can even choose to participate in our Green Stay program, where you can opt out of having your room serviced for a night or two. And this helps us, of course, conserve water, energy, electricity, and reduce the use of laundry detergents. And because of that, we then make a donation on behalf of our guests to the Hurtigruten Foundation, which supports a lot of the local communities that we visit around the world. We have very comfortable base camp at sea. So after a day of exploring or an afternoon being out in, the more frigid temperatures, it can be so great to come back to our ships, kind of your home away from home, and maybe sit by the faux fire in the Explorer's Lounge with a drink, or maybe put on your robe and go and sit in our panoramic saunas. You can't be a Norwegian company and not have a sauna on board your ship. Or maybe it's reserving, a massage in the wellness center for yourself. So really, we want to make sure that the ship is kind of an extension of where you're visiting and just kind of that nice, comfortable place to visit. No dress codes on board. So, keep the dresses and the suits and everything at home. Jeans and a sweater to dinner is completely acceptable. And of course, all you need for adventure. We do provide a very value-packed experience for our guests in order to have a safe and enjoyable experience in this amazing destination. So our expedition team, they really are the heart and soul of what the experience is all about. They are your hosts both on board in our Explorer boats, these Zodiacs that you see here, and ashore when we are doing our landing activities. So they could be nature, wildlife viewing landings, or maybe we're doing a hike that day. We have over 350 team members from around the world. And yes, we do have some Canadians on board our expedition team. And they are all educated professionals in their own specialty. That could be geology, ornithology, polar history, marine biology. They all bring something different to the table to help our guests fully immerse in and learn about the destination that we're visiting. And of course, polar survival training is one of the first things that they have to go through with us before ever embarking on an Arctic or Antarctic expedition. Not just with Hurtigruten expeditions, but also the associations that allow us to be in those destinations to begin with. As part of our culinary experience on board, we like to say that expedition takes priority over meal times. Again, it's keeping with that idea of flexibility and taking advantage of the conditions while we have them available to us. So you might find that day to day, your meal times might shift a little bit so that we are making sure we are accommodating the expedition part of the experience first. And then have the option for your meals. And don't worry, I promise you will never go hungry on an expedition. We do include, of course, your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, as well as an early riser and an afternoon treat. And when we get those beautiful sunny days where we might be doing some scenic cruising, our hotel managers love to throw kind of an impromptu barbecue on the top decks of our ships. So coffee, tea, and water are always included and available, and we do offer house wine, beer, pop, and mineral water in the restaurants at lunch and dinner. And it's not the Norwegian way of life to tip, so gratuities are not expected on board our ships either. Now, some of the onboard engagement with expedition cruising, a lot of it follows around, again, education around the destination that we're visiting and the hopes that our guests become destination ambassadors. So a lot of the program will be a lecture series hosted by our expedition team that will take you through specific, destination themes, as well as touching on, climate change and the effects of that with where we're sailing, learning about the wildlife, the bird life that we might and will see in these destinations, and of course the earth science behind, how did this destination come to be? What's it made up of? What's its geology? And if we are in a destination where there are local communities, of course, learning about their local traditions and celebrating that. Our guests can also participate in citizen science programs, and that means we are partners with many different associations around the world and help them in the collection of data, because they can't always afford to charter a ship for an entire Antarctic summer season to study whales. So we work with many different associations to either invite them on board to stay and work with us and study, or we collect the data on their behalf to share with them at the end of each season. One of my favorites, I think, is Happy Whale, because it's just so simple to participate in, assuming we can capture a great photo of a whale tail. So with that photo, which is their identifying marker, like we have fingerprints, we can upload the photo of a whale tail to the Happy Whale.
I think we've lost her. Kristen, are you there? Well, just give her a minute to maybe disconnect and then reconnect. So just hang tight. If anybody has any questions in the meantime, if you could type them into the chat, and then we will answer those when she comes back. And here she starts. She is coming back. You're muted, Kristen.
Here we go. Sorry.
That's okay.
Bless this internet world we live in. So with our Happy Whale database, we have the opportunity, again, to help, aid in the research of finding and searching out whales and figuring out their migratory patterns. We do also have photo lectures on board. So we have a professional photographer on board each one of our expedition ships. And they are there to help our guests with their own camera equipment and do some on-deck guiding as well, figuring out the right lenses that they should be using. And they're also there to capture the entire experience as well and to offer a great sort of end of expedition video for our guests to enjoy and the opportunity to purchase a USB of their photos if you wish at the end. We do have free Wi-Fi on board, keeping in mind that we are sometimes in limited connectivity areas. I mean, heck, even here in Toronto, that can happen as well. But a great opportunity just to be able to keep in touch, with friends and family back home. Our guests also have the opportunity, if they wish to participate in our science boat, you can sign up for it voluntarily at the beginning of the voyage, and we'll break you down into smaller groups and give you opportunities to go out throughout the entire trip and collect samples that we can actually bring back to our science center and look at under our geological and biological microscopes. And it's amazing, even down in the waters of Antarctica, collecting water samples and seeing that there are actually microplastics that are present even this far south. Very eye-opening and really understanding sort of the plastic pollution problem that we have in the world. Now, when experiencing expedition, the type of gear that you're going to need, we do provide you with a lot of the basics to help you, get the initial start with your expedition. So everybody will receive the Helly Hansen Expedition Jacket. This is a wind water resistant layer, and it's great. It's got tons of pockets, area for your cruise card when we are ashore. And really the key and the secret to packing for expedition is layers. You want to be able to add and remove layers as you change the types of activities that you're doing. And the one best thing you could bring is a pair of waterproof pants that you can easily pull over your existing clothing. We do provide our guests, especially in the polar regions, with our Hurtigruten muck boots. These are warm, really thick rubber treaded boots that are required in this destination. And it follows with the theme of biosecurity, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So the jacket and the boots, we size you for both of those on board our ship. Our guests can also use our trekking poles as well. So if we are maybe in an icy or a muddy or just a rocky area for a landing, you can use our poles that our expedition team will bring ashore. And of course, everybody does receive a reusable water bottle since we have no single-use plastics on board our ship. In the boats that you see above, you probably know them as Zodiacs. We like to call them our explorer boats. So we use these for our tender operations, of course, of bringing our guests to and from shore. And we also use them to go out and do some ice cruising. So people are always a little bit curious to know how easy is it to get in and out of these boats. And the great thing is the design of the Hurtigruten ships is the side hull of our ship actually folds out flat. So we have a landing platform that our boats can pull right up to. And we have crew that are both on the platform and in the boats to help our guests get safely in and out. And it's all about using the sailor grip at the end of the day to make it just as easy and safe. Now you hear me use the term landing, and what does that really mean? You might be familiar with on a larger ship experience, going ashore and experiencing a shore excursion. Well, of course, down in Antarctica, we don't have access to anything really, built up, no ports, no cities, nothing, no major infrastructures. So we actually use the land to naturally go ashore with the shoreline and disembark our guests to do some exploration. So there's different types of landings that we could run into, which I'll get into, but how do we do the landing? So with Antarctica, there is a restriction that you can have 100 people ashore at one time. So in order for us to make sure that we have, are following that rule, we set up an operational schedule, and everybody before the voyage begins is assigned to a boat group. And we like to assign you fun, animal names, depending on where we are sailing in the world. So of course, down in Antarctica, there tends to be a penguin and a seal theme to the boat groups that we name you. And you're given a patch that you can put onto your jacket. We have a little Velcro spot. And then we rotate through all of the groups. So you're always going to know kind of within that 15-minute window of when your group is going to be disembarking, so that we keep this seamless rotation of making sure we constantly have those 100 people ashore at one time and are never going over that amount. And it's also to make sure that everybody has equal time ashore as well. So you may not always go out first or in the middle or in the end. We do mix it up with every operation that we do to give everybody a fair chance. So before we as guests ever go ashore, our expedition team will go ashore first and essentially kind of seek out the landing site, do a walkthrough of it, see if there are any areas that they need to be blocking off, either for safety purposes, whether it's for us or the safety of the local wildlife. It could be penguin breeding season, for example, or their nesting period. So we want to make sure that we are not disrupting that as guests to their home. So they will bring cones and flags ashore, and they will, walk the landing site area and set up these areas and block off certain things to make sure that we are not disturbing any of, the natural habitat that is there. So some of the different types of landings we might encounter in Antarctica, we do sometimes have the opportunity to visit a research base. And so we would have the use of their facilities, whether it might be this particular one we were at Vernadsky Station, which is a Ukrainian research base, and they had a small little, dock pier that we could disembark our guests onto. And this particular base is home to the southernmost bar in the world. So they do actually make their own vodka there. You can pay, I think it was like $5 and try a shot of their vodka. And hey, say you had a drink down in the southernmost bar. So sometimes we do get that opportunity where we are stepping right onto dry land from our explorer boats. But very often in Antarctica, we do run into a wet landing or a beach landing. So this, you can see why those muck boots very much come in handy for this type of experience, because you could be stepping in and out of, a foot or two of polar water in order to disembark from the explorer boat onto land, and vice versa, from land into the boat. This was actually when one of the other boats was coming in just behind me when I was down there. And then of course, at the beginning of the Antarctic season, when there's so much snow and ice, we do encounter the polar landings, where our expedition team might even need to bring a shovel or a pickaxe ashore in order to sort of carve out a set of stairs for our guests to be able to embark onto the landing area. And what can be kind of funny is, in areas where there might be a penguin colony, penguins don't tend to be scared of us as humans, so they actually start to use the set of stairs to get themselves in and out of the water that the expedition team has created. They're very resourceful and very curious. And some of the other beauty of expedition cruising is the opportunity to get into the explorer boats and get even more up close with the ice. Of course, always maintaining a safe distance, because icebergs can very easily and quickly and out of the blue shift and roll. So we never want to get, ourselves into that type of situation. But this was actually one of the days that we had in Port Charcot, and why we did scenic cruising here in the explorer boats was because there were so many different shapes and sizes of icebergs that we had the opportunity to see And again, just a beautiful day to be out exploring and cruising in and around the ice. And of course, sometimes if we're lucky, we might have a visit from some whales. Of course, we can never guarantee that. And this was not my boat. This is not my photo, to be very honest. This was a group that went out a couple hours ahead of us. So you can see how things can change with the experience. And they had some fin whales and some right whales come right up to their boat and swim in and around it. And again, it's in those situations where the opportunity's there, we just stop, the operation, stop the rotation of boats and let this natural, interaction unfold. And that's really the exciting moments that you can never plan when it comes to expedition cruising. And another great perk of, being down in a place like Antarctica is all of the amazing, channels and fjord systems that we can sail through with our ship. And that's the great thing with small ship cruising, is getting into those narrow inlets to get very close to some of the icebergs. And believe it or not, this photo was actually just me standing on the top deck with my cell phone taking this photo. And this was one of those days where we were doing some scenic cruising and had the barbecue going on the top deck because it was just absolutely stunning. The weather was fantastic. And it was just massive iceberg after iceberg that we were able to see and capture some great photos with. Now, this one was not a cell phone photo, but it was with my better camera. But this was an opportunity where our captain actually spotted this iceberg on his GPS system. It wasn't originally in the path of where our ship was going to be sailing that evening. But there's a bit of, kind of specialty about this iceberg. It has a name, it's A68A. It's so large that you could actually land a plane on it. So he saw this iceberg and actually chose to divert the ship that evening so that we could get up close to see it. And it happened to be one of those evenings where we had, a beautiful sunset with the colors in the sky, and it really brought out the blues and the greens and the whites of the ice. But again, it's one of those moments of just changing our trajectory, changing the schedule to take advantage of viewing something like this. And this experience, specifically will never happen again. This iceberg does not exist anymore. It has melted, but you could go back and do this destination and it will never be the same from what you did the first time. And really, that's kind of what makes these trips sort of that once in a lifetime, because it will never repeat itself with the types of experiences and wildlife encounters that we get to have down in Antarctica. And if you're a brave soul, we do encourage our guests to try out the polar plunge. I felt I wasn't doing myself justice working for this company if I didn't do it myself. So there is video of that hiding somewhere that I'll never show of doing the polar plunge. And yes, we give you the certificate to prove that it happened, because I think otherwise no one would ever believe that I decided to willingly dunk my head and full body into 3-degree water. But again, when in Antarctica, you do as the local explorers would have done. And you can see this gentleman here just absolutely seemed to love doing it. It's funny, we had a group of students from Vancouver actually that was on one of our ships, and the whole group of them went into the water at the same time to do the polar plunge. And didn't one of the students go in with his glasses on and didn't realize it until he came out without his glasses. So his poor teacher, I think, did the polar plunge about 5 times until he amazingly actually found the glasses on the bottom. But there can be some great and hilarious moments when participating in the polar plunge. Now, we do have some optional activities. These come at an extra cost only because we are limited in the numbers that we're able to offer these for because of local restrictions and rules that we need to follow while in Antarctica. So there is the opportunity to try out sea kayaking while you're down there. Again, a great chance to get a little bit closer to some of the icebergs and maybe a whale encounter. At the beginning of the season, when there is lots of snow, we do take groups out for snowshoeing. And believe it or not, there is also the opportunity to try overnight camping in Antarctica as well. Now you need to go sort of the beginning, early, middle part of the season because we need a lot of snow in order to comfortably offer camping and snowshoeing. But yes, you could, you know, as the polar heroes did of the past, spend a night out in Antarctica with the penguins. And our ship does actually disappear for the evening so that it's just you and your amazing surroundings. Now, there was a treaty signed December 1st, 1959, designating Antarctica as a place of peace and science. So nobody owns Antarctica, nobody permanently inhabits Antarctica. There are a lot of seasonal scientists that are down here. But the destination itself is basically regulated by the International Association of Antarctica Tour Operators. And we are long-term members of IATO. And they are also the ones that could very much remove us from sailing here if we don't follow the rules of what it means to be down here. So when it comes to the size of your ship, you can only actually step foot on Antarctica if you are on a ship that has 500 or fewer passengers. So you do see some of the larger cruise lines offer Antarctica in some of their South America itineraries. So just keep in mind, they tend to be sort of a cruise by experience for a couple days. But if you do want to physically step foot on land, you need to travel with the smaller ships that are those 500 or fewer passengers. And that's where our ships come into play with a Category 2 and a Category 1 ship. So we have our two newest, Roald Amundsen and Fridtjof Nansen are in the Category 2s, and then MS Fram is in our Category 1. We have a saying at Hurtigruten, do you want to do it or do you want to view it? That's kind of the difference between if you go as a large ship versus smaller ship experience to this particular destination. There's a lot of biosecurity rules we need to follow when we're here because we cannot introduce any foreign contaminants to the continent. And it's part of why we as guests are not allowed to wear our own footwear when we are ashore. We have to use the designated footwear for this area. So your shoelaces and things can't fall off of you or any fleece from your boots or anything like that. So before we ever go ashore, we vacuum the outer clothing layers to make sure, again, there's no lint, there's no fluff, there's no fleece or anything that could fall off of you and be introduced to Antarctica. And before we get into the explorer boats, we walk through a disinfectant just to really get any, outstanding bacteria that might be on the bottom of our boots. And then when we actually come back on the ship as well, we go through a little boot car wash in order to remove anything that our boots might have picked up while we were ashore, again, so that we don't introduce anything foreign from Antarctica back to ship. And another very strict rule is maintaining a safe distance from wildlife. You can see these guests, man, they followed the briefing to a T. So the rule is at least 5 meters or 15 feet away. Now, of course, the wildlife doesn't always know the rules. They don't know the barriers. So it is possible that one of these curious penguins could decide to come up to you and see, what's going on. I'll never forget one of my colleagues, his life jacket strap was actually blowing in the wind, and a Gentoo penguin came up to him. And he was making it his mission to capture the life jacket strap in his beak and just would not leave him alone until he achieved this. And then once he did, he was like, yep, I'm done with you. And away he waddled off. So in those situations, it's just for us to stand there, let the penguin do its thing. It's in control of the situation. We don't want to scare it off. We don't want to startle it or, of course, never touch it. We just, let it do its thing. It eventually gets tired and moves on. But you can see even, this little baby fur seal decided that the boot brush that we brought ashore was just a great spot to have an afternoon nap. So there can be some really, comical and, funny experiences to have with the local wildlife because, again, they don't know the rules. They do whatever they want. They're down there. So speaking of the wildlife, what do you tend to see in Antarctica? Of course, we tend to think of penguins, and if you're on sort of the shortest, quick trip to the continent, you're going to see the gentoos, the adelies, and the chin straps. If you expand to one of our longer cruises that includes the Falkland Islands, we add in seeing the southern rockhopper, the Magellanic penguins, and if we're lucky, we might see the king penguins on the Falkland Islands. But the only place we can actually guarantee them is in the island of South Georgia. Now, there's also lots of other bird life down there. The albatross, there's a few different types that we get to see, and they love to actually fly alongside our ship when we're going through the Drake Passage. And the skuas and the petrels, they tend to be nearby penguin colonies because unfortunately they feed on the penguin eggs and the penguin chicks. There's many different types of seal that we can see here. It could be the crab eater seal, the wet-owl seal, the elephant seal, leopard seal. And the leopard seal, it is just as nasty as it looks in the photo. And this is where our expedition team, when they are ashore, are making sure that, our guests are well away from any, potential movement from a leopard seal or any nastiness that it might, bring forth. And of course, there's lots of whale life down in Antarctica because they come down here to feed in the summertime on all of the krill. So we do have the chance to see orcas, humpbacks, minkies, fin whales, right whales, and they increase towards the end of the season. That really is peak whale sighting season. So the Antarctic season itself, the summer is end of October through till sort of end of March, early April. So at the beginning of the season, lots of snow and ice, huge icebergs. It can take us a little bit longer to get to landing sites because the ice can be thicker in the water. This is also the breeding and nesting period for the penguins. Once we get into sort of, late December into January, if you're hoping to see the penguin chicks, this is the best time of year to go, as well as the fur seal pups that are being born. And we also get the longest days at this time of year and the warmest temperatures. Now, the summer for Antarctica averages about -5 to 5 degrees. Now, towards the end of the season, this is where we hope that the sea ice has melted enough that we can actually cross below the Antarctic Circle. And it's something we can only attempt at this time of year because we need the temperatures to have helped the ice recede enough that we can get below the Antarctic Circle. That's that 66 degrees line of latitude south. Just to look quickly at some of the itineraries that we offer here. Sort of our quick trip to Antarctica, if you just have that 2-week time period, is our highlights of Antarctica. You get 5 full days in the destination. And you'll notice we have little airplanes included on our itineraries, and that's because we include a charter flight for our guests to get from either Buenos Aires or Santiago down to our ship docked in either Ushuaia or Punta Arenas. We want to make sure everybody arrives to the ship together because once that ship departs for its expedition, there is no catching up with it at a later time frame. And you can then, move up to our Antarctic and Falklands itinerary. So still getting those 5 full days in Antarctica, but adding 3 days in the Falklands. So we do visit, this is the one place where we actually visit a port, a city, and that's Port Stanley in the Falklands. And then we have 2 other days where we do landings at usually uninhabited parts of the Falkland Islands and have the opportunity maybe to see some nesting albatross or some of the other different penguin types that I showed you earlier. And if you want to make that attempt to cross the Antarctic Circle, we offer an 18-day sort of very full in-depth experience of Antarctica where you get up to 11 days of time on the continent and the attempt to go below the Antarctic Circle. Now, I had the opportunity on my voyage to cross below the Antarctic Circle. And again, we give you the certificate to prove that it happened so that you can, kind of frame this, share this memory with your friends and family. And King Neptune sometimes, just happens to show up when we cross the Antarctic Circle. And He wants to bless us with calm seas for the rest of his voyage. So in order to do that, we have to pass his test. And his test is, of course, having polar water dumped down the back of our shirt. So I decided I was going to be the first one on the ship to get the ball rolling with the test. And I think my face says it all, just exactly how cold that water is. And again, it can be such a great day just to enjoy watching people have this done. And it's totally voluntary. You don't have to do it, but just kind of one of the neat little traditions that we do at Hurtigruten to commemorate these different types of crossings that we get to do with our expeditions. And then finally, our longest itinerary includes Antarctica, includes the Falklands, and includes the sub-Antarctic island of South Georgia. Think of this almost as the Galapagos of the South, very unique wildlife opportunities. And if there is any Ernest Shackleton fans out there, we do, try to pay a visit to Grytviken to sort of pay our respects to this, polar explorer of the past, and even try and reenact his hike that he would have done to Whalers Bay to try and find aid for his crew that was stranded on Elephant Island. But the king penguin, this is the major highlight of doing the expedition to South Georgia. And believe it or not, this can be one of the landing sites that you visit in South Georgia. This is St. Andrews Bay. There's over 150,000 breeding pairs of king penguins here. And you can see all the fluffy brown ones. Those are actually the king penguin chicks. And what's amazing about this is when mom and dad go into the water, to collect food to bring it back to their chick, they can actually find their chick in this sea of penguins just by their individual call that they chat to each other. So I think really that's just nature at its finest. So I'm just going to finish off. We do have a couple promotions going on right now. The great thing is we have expeditions for sale right through till March 2023, and we will likely be launching the 23-24 season into the fall of this year. So there's lots of opportunity for you to be planning in advance. So we do have a sale right now, right through to the end of this quarter, offering up to $32.50 off per person for all of our Hurtigruten expeditions, with the exception of Central and South America. And then those two destinations, we have up to 30% off for the quarter as well. But for our Canadians specifically, we're offering a Canadian residency savings, an additional 10% that's available this quarter. And that's combinable with all of the sales as well. So this is a great opportunity for us to save a little bit extra on our expeditions for the third quarter of this year. And of course, the benefit for working with your Expedia Cruises centers in BC, we are offering some additional onboard credit, 90 euros per person. It is euros because our onboard currency for our expedition ships is the euro. So have a chat with your Expedia Cruises locations, and they have all the details about all of our fantastic promotions. But just to finish off, I'd love to show a quick 1-minute video of what it can look like sailing with us in Antarctica. I always love that one. Man, it makes me miss Antarctica. But that is it for me.
Thank you very much, Kristen. That was fantastic. Hopefully, Kristen has inspired you to make Antarctica or one of Hurtigrutens expeditions. Add it to your bucket list of places you just need to go to. And the pictures that you took and that your team took were spectacular. So just to wrap up, just want to talk a little bit to this slide. Manulife Travel Insurance, Expedia Cruises offers this type of travel insurance. We know that travel insurance is going to be a very important component of your travel purchase going forward. We just want to make sure that you know that we do sell this product. It is very important to add it to any of your future trips. Talk to our licensed professionals. It is so important that you do so. They will give you all of the information about all the different products that we offer. Just a reminder that our offices are all open now with all the restrictions being lifted. The 10 offices that are participating in these travel talks, their phone numbers are listed right on the screen. So please reach out to them or reach out to your individual consultants. We're here to help and make your next vacation, get it booked and with as seamless as possible going forward. Thank you, Kristen, for joining us, and thank you all of our valued customers for joining us as well. Our next travel talk will be with Princess Cruises on July 27th. And Wade Menard, who is the presenter, he will be talking about our biggest promotion of the year with Princess Cruises, our 3-day sale, which will be happening in the middle of August. So please, hopefully you can take the time to see that presentation as well. Make sure you invite any friends or family that you know that are interested in a Princess Cruise. So I will get right to the questions. If there are any more questions, please quickly type them into the chat. Right now, we just have one question for you, Kristen, so you might get off easy. Thank you, Polly, for this question. Are there any physical limitations for the guests?
Going down to a place like Antarctica, I mean, you can really be as active or inactive as you wish or as you're capable of. I think sometimes there's a misconception that, you need to be out sea kayaking or, doing the hikes up the mountains or their cliffs or anything like that. So we just ask that our guests have a good general sense of health. For this destination in particular, there is a health questionnaire that our guests do need to fill out and have signed by their local general practitioner. Again, just so that we know our guests have sort of a good basic sense of health, because of course in this area, we are quite far from hospitals and cities and things like that. So just keep that in mind when you are traveling here. And hence really the importance of travel insurance for this type of destination. But for yourself, I mean, you can choose to, with our landing activities, we always have options depending on what our guests, capabilities and preferences are. So it could be, sure, participating in the hike with the expedition team, or it could be, just visiting one of the local penguin colonies that will be, potentially located near where we are disembarking our guests, because we always aware everybody's got a different, physical capability. So we make sure that we always have options to cater to everybody's preferences.
All right, thank you. Hopefully, Polly, that answers your question. And that is it. I thank you very much, Kristen. What a wonderful presentation, very thorough and very beautiful. And thank you again for everybody that attended, and I wish you good night.